My name is Victor. I am the occult technician, and this is Mind War. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now, back to the show. Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, we're going to pick up where we left off in the book Magic, History, Theory, Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. We left off on page 123, the second paragraph, and it begins with this. That sensations which are occurring during ecstasy are hallucinatory and suggestively brought about has nothing to do with it, because the same, only in a much milder form, is the case with regards to the empiric reality. What we call our empiric world is also to a high degree based upon the power of suggestion of our fellow humans, and also the empiric world is hallucination, i.e. imagination. Carl Vogel, an author, says this: imagination, emotion, deed, are in the region of the original experience, one and the same. What we traditionally call imagining is a pale, fragmentary replicating of our established procedural world. The imaginations of the magical eye are, on the contrary, approaches, efforts for the formations of another world. The imagination becomes a hallucination at first for the medium, and finally reality. That is to say, a complete hallucination for all attendees. It becomes visible, hearable, and tangible. It gets in line with the context of our environment. So again, as we've talked about before, there is no manifestation without imagination. You have to imagine the things that you want to create. And there is also no manifestation without putting in the work. You have to put in the work to be able to build the things that you imagined. And often, through this process of magic, we find that our imagination is sparked through hallucinatory events. Again, we get ourselves into a state of somnambulance where we are going to have hallucinations. It's not something to be afraid of. It's something that is actually very fun. It's exciting, it's exhilarating to have these hallucinations. Whether it's, you're with your eyes open and you are seeing things in the environment around you, or whether it is these hallucinations that you are having with your eyes closed during the Gateway Experience tapes. Again, it's, Robert Monroe, as you are listening to the tapes, like we talked about before, he is the master. He is doing this hypnotic suggestion. He is talking you through the things that you should be seeing and imagining. But then there are tapes where he allows you to just kind of think freely. And in that process, again, with the psilocybin in the state of somnambulance, your eyes are closed. You are using your imagination, but you are having these vivid hallucinations within your mind. It's a very dreamlike state where you are able to control your dreams. It's a beautiful feeling. It's a beautiful state of being. It's one that I miss quite dearly. We have deliberately portrayed the basic experience of ecstasy in its most complete form. Even though we know that only very few of today's living Europeans will actually experience it. We have deliberately we have deliberately portrayed the basic experience of ecstasy in its most complete form. And again, it says so many or so few of today's living Europeans or Americans, basically members of the white race, the few of us that are still here, so few of us will actually be experiencing this level of ecstasy that is required to really to do magic the way that we're talking about here. It doesn't have to be this way. We do not have to be dwindling in numbers. There is a huge fight ahead of us, but we can do it. All of the mind warriors, citizen samurais, guerrilla gurus, and warrior monks out there, you know who you are. You know the work that you need to do. And really, at this point, it's just spreading this message of hope. There is still hope for us. That we as Europeans, as Americans, as white folk, as white Volk, we're not done yet. Our greatest days are ahead of us. We see the enemy. They're all around us. They're openly talking about our genocide. They're openly talking about our destruction. They're celebrating it today. But we're not done yet. We still have a long ways to go. But in this manner, we gained an idea of the typical sensations which play a role with regard to preforms and deforms of the great ecstasy. Even if actual ecstasy is seldom reached, its attenuated forms also grant a deepening of the magical consequences and an increase of magical powers. This alone makes it worthwhile to subject oneself to its exertions. So again, at the end of the Gateway Experience tapes, that series, it ended in March of 2025. That was really the last time that I took the mushrooms, the psilocybin, the THC, and was really getting into that deep state of, drug-induced somnambulance, getting into the deep state of hypnosis by listening to the tapes and listening to the music. Since then, over these last almost 9-10 months now, most of the work that I did in 2025 and now leading into 2026, it's much more subdued. I am much older now. I find it more difficult to get into those states of being physically because I'm just not physically able to. We talked about in earlier episodes that I had to stop using marijuana. It was causing me to have extreme high blood pressure, feelings of dizziness. My heart felt like it was pounding out of my chest. So again, that's why earlier I said that, sadly, I can't have these experiences the way that I used to. But as we're talking about here, even if, once you go through that, you do have to go through those more extreme experiences. That is a requirement. That's that 3 years that I talked about. Those first 3 years of my magical practice, that's where the real work was done. That's where I was doing some very extreme and serious levels of magic, some high-level magic work there. But just because now things are more subdued, I did a tarot card pull last night. It was much more chill. I still lit the candle and I still lit the incense and I still wrote in my journal and still pulled the card. But there wasn't any, no psilocybin or anything like that. I took a few puffs off the vape pen. But it was much more subdued. I took a few deep breaths and allowed myself to really get into a calm state while pulling the card. And it's definitely not as extreme as it was before. It's not nearly as intense as it was before. But there is still a mild stream of magic flowing through me. And again, I do miss those more extreme and intense experiences. And maybe again someday, but at this point I kind of reserve myself to understanding that those days may be over for me. As soon as it succeeds to arbitrarily create this state of erasure and to maintain it for a longer period of time, one can begin with special and arbitrary compression practices. Here, a compression is the plastic clarification and capturing of any kind of imagination. The most suitable object for this is a human with whom we are bound by any kind of strong emotions, at best passionate love. That such a concentration would be harmful to a still living human, as is sometimes claimed, is a myth. The impact of our concentration always depends on us. So again, if you are deeply and madly in love with someone, this practice of magic, I really hope that you too can come together in this and really find a way to use magic as a way to deepen your connections. One imagines the pertaining human as pictorial and plastic as possible, but not desperately. One will notice that any desperate effort immediately blurs and disintegrates the image. So again, if you are trying to do any magic where you are trying to, bring someone into your life, if you have a crush on someone and you want to try to, express your love to them and have them express it to you in return, sure, you can do magic for that. And the author's saying here, you cannot do it with desperation. If you do it with desperation, it's all going to, as he says here, disintegrate. It's going to disintegrate the image that you see in your mind of them. One must not constantly think, I want, because our will is indeed giving the impetus to the imagination. But this imagination must then be left to its own devices to be able to unfold itself. Again, do not go into this work with I want. I made that mistake in the beginning. I thought, I allowed my ego to really drive my magic. And ultimately, all of those things that I thought I wanted, they ended up falling apart. But what the path that was then opened up for me was so much more beautiful and so much more powerful because it was the path of the things that I needed. The only thing our will has to do is to keep our imaginations away. We must totally devote ourselves to the emerging appearance. Our whole body must, so to speak, emit it out of its pores, circulate, and nourish it. The maintaining of the imagined image must last as long as possible. This part can be difficult. Once you are imagining these things, and once you have these images in your mind, it can be very difficult to keep them there, keep them focused, keep them, keep that visual image in front of you in your mind, because so often your mind is going to want to wander. You're going to start to get tired where you're actually going to start feeling like you're going to fall asleep, and then kind of this dreamlike state takes over where it's just kind of chaotic. You have to be very careful about that. Or if you didn't put all of your worries, concerns, and issues into your energy conversion box properly, they can poke out their ugly heads as well when you're trying to do this very important work. Hereby, we should also try to come into personal contact with the image, speak to it, and let it answer, and to communicate with it as if it were an empirical human. Absolutely, in your mind, communicate with these images, whatever they are. Do not feel afraid to communicate with them. That's what we're doing. That's one of the whole purposes of this, is conjuring these spirits, conjuring these images into our mind so we can communicate with them, so we can find those answers to the questions that we so desperately need. This practice serves the purpose to acquire or increase the ability to compress a certain imagined image to the highest form and let it gain continuity. A byproduct will often be the phenomenon that the human whom we are imagining by this concentrated means is in the same moment thinking about us, dreaming of us, or it is otherwise telepathically coming into contact with us. This phenomenon is sought and extended as an end in itself in pictorial magic. But for the time being, we disregard it and foster the imagination per se. That's amazing. If you have someone that you have a crush on and you are imagining them while you're doing your work, they may be, through telepathy, as the author here says, they may be starting to think about you as well because of the energies that you are pushing outwards. You are pushing it out into the universe, and they are receiving these sort of messages, right? And the idea that, again, if you already are in love with someone and you already have a close physical connection and an emotional relationship with them, doing this type of practice together, this is where I would love to see the mind warriors, citizen samurais, guerrilla gurus, and warrior monks in their first earth battalions practicing this type of telepathy work together. Those of you who are already in relationships, already deeply in love with each other, do this type of work. I mean, what a great bonding and connecting practice that you could use. The further practices serve the aim to not only compress the imagination more and more, but to also increasingly deepen it. This is to say we try to project complexes of inner forces, which are more and more centrally located into it. Therewith, the appearance of the pertaining imagination also changes. It moves more and more away from the natural model and gains a more and more mysterious and significant character. This is a similar process as with the artist, who, while being in a state of artistic inspiration, reforms a natural impression more and more and loads it with a manner with soul substance until the entirety of this inner forces are compressed in the finished artwork. Again, as an artist, we often take things that are from nature, and then we add, as the author here says, the soul substance, and we kind of transform them into more of their, really transform them out of their physical nature and really get to see more of the soul image that is within these objects that we are doing our art about, right? The more central the complexes of inner forces are, the more meaningful appears the artwork, and the more it approaches the demonic sacral world. William Blake, for example, tells about his artistic work. I am really drunk with intellectual vision whenever I take a pencil or graver into my hand. The perception of the imaginative eye of every human is as different as the one of the bodily eye, and the spiritual mystery unveils itself according to the visionary capacity of the viewer. So again, when you do art, as William Blake says here, you are almost drunk in your work. You allow it to sort of overtake you. We hear that often in what we call channeling. We hear a lot of artists talking about channeling, whether it's music or paintings or any other form of art, right? With enough intensity of the somnambulant state, the imagined nature image will gradually gain an almost eerie, holy expression, and the emerging figure is then to be approached as a direct embodiment of the oscillation form of our demonic inner forces, which have been freed in this manner. This is especially strong if we choose a human as the starting point for our imagination, who already in life also activates our demonic sides. It is not only by chance that many of the old masters took their lady love as the model for their holy pictures. So again, when we think about our demonic inner forces, or activating our demonic sides in these imaginations, again, the demons, these are simply characters that are created in order to help us communicate our human emotions, our human characteristics. And one of those characteristics is love and its partner, lust. And if you are imagining, as the author here says, your lady love, if she is the model that you are imagining, those demonic feelings, again, not in a negative way. Demons are not negative. They are not something to be feared and hated and be afraid of. They're something to be communed with, because it's our own natural instincts, our own natural human characteristics. Harness those things, commune with them, and bring them into your work. As soon as one comes into personal contact with such a compressed and deepened imagination, that is to say, deals with it as one would with empirical things, one associates with it in the most complete sense of the word. That's an interesting little sentence there, okay? Because one of the things that you can do is, if this person maybe you have a crush on, again, I know this sounds kind of strange, right? But if you find it difficult to talk to them, if you find it difficult to interact with them, if you find yourself being too shy and just turning into a goofball every time you're around them, talk to them in your mind while you're doing this work. Do your communication. Get all of those, the anxiety and the jitters and all of that stuff, get it out of you, deal with it, process it in this state of being. That way, when you see them in the real world, all the anxiety is already dealt with. All the jitters are already gone, and you can be your cool, sly, smooth self and actually, woo them, if you will. The demonic association is where we must focus our attention, because our magical powers feed on it. Such an intercourse with demonic imaginations is reported from the lives of all great saints and magicians, and to initiate it was, as we have seen, the primary purpose of the mysteries of antiquity. So intercourse with these demonic imaginations, a very kind of graphic visual of what we're talking about, really dealing with your emotions, dealing with all of these feelings that you have inside of you before you go out and have to deal with them in the empirical world, the concrete world. That's what the author's talking about. Handle all this stuff before you go. It's exactly like practice for sports, or practicing, if you're in the military. You go to the rifle range and you shoot over and over and over again. You visualize yourself doing it. It's all practice, because we're handling those jitters. We're handling any of the fear that we have prior to the actual event occurring. And in this case, as the author's kind of talking about here, it's dealing with someone that you love or have a crush on or you're attracted to, right? You can deal with those jitters and all that stuff prior to meeting with them. Up until now, we have discussed using pure imagination in our exercises. We use imagination for this purpose in an empirical matter. However, imagination alone, in most cases, will not bring on the desired effect. Again, it is better to visualize actual objects and places. This can obviously be a person, but initially more inanimate objects are preferred because they are simpler and have less detail about them. A flame, a strangely shaped flower, a strange stone, a statue, or any other object is more appropriate. So in the beginning of listening to the Gateway Experience tapes, one of the ways that I would stay focused, and one of the ways that I would stop those kind of external thoughts from, stealing away my attention, is I would focus on the symbol in front of me. I would visualize the American flag triangle there floating in front of me in the darkness. And I would keep my focus on it. Number one, it would keep me from, again, falling asleep and trying to fall into this dream state where the dream just gets chaotic and takes over. And man, since I quit smoking weed, folks, again, those dreams are wild. Nobody warned me about that stuff. Yikes, 30 years without dreaming, and now it is multiple dreams a night, and it's been very strange. But again, I would focus on this logo that I created in front of me. The symbol here, the American flag triangle, I would focus on it in my mind, and it would help me stay focused, stay awake, and really get me ready for whatever, again, Dr. Monroe was hypno-suggesting that we do during each of the tapes, whatever the exercise was. Once you are able to focus on a particular object and have only that object in your mind, it is then that the desire is to increase your ecstasy to the point of body vibrations and ultimately free the consciousness of the body. Nevertheless, we also have learned the hard way that the environment in which you practice is not indifferent, since your mood and environment will have a direct impact on whether or not you have success and how long you can remain detached from the body. Again, how long you can maintain this out-of-body experience. That's what Dr. Ernst Schertl is talking about here. Again, he's discussing in his own way how to have the same experiences that Robert Monroe taught us through the Gateway Experience tapes. He's just taking a different avenue because he didn't have the technology to create the Gateway Experience tapes the same way that Robert Monroe did. And again, your environment in which you practice is not indifferent. It matters. Your mood matters. If you go into this with a bad attitude, it's not going to work well for you. Now, that's different than, like I've talked about so many times before, you can go into these practices angry, and you should. You can go into these exercises full of hate, full of rage. Do that. Again, harness that energy, harness those emotions, commune with the demonic side of your anger. Instead of spilling it through self-harm, instead of dulling it through drugs and alcohol, you harness it, you commune with it. You then, in your mind, while you're doing the work, you process your anger, you process your emotions, you see and you visualize and have the imagination of what you're going to then create when you actually do the work. You start to see the images of what you're going to do instead of drinking and dulling the pain, instead of doing drugs and dulling the pain, instead of self-harm and dulling the pain, right? And then, of course, the environment will have a direct impact on whether or not you are successful and how long you remain detached from the body. So again, your environment, like I said, I've always liked to clean my house, set my altar up first. Even when I listened to the Gateway Experience tapes, I would wash my sheets, I would wash my comforter, the pillowcase, all that type of stuff. Of course, wash the clothes that I was going to wear for the ritual and everything. All of this stuff is going to help you feel more comfortable. And for some people, I know that that's hard to do. I know some of you are trapped in this state where it's hard for you to do any of this. You have no motivation to do any of the things that I'm talking about. That's why, again, that 90 days of sobriety, that 90 days of really just pushing yourself through the hard parts, making some of those incremental changes before you even begin to do the magic. Those 90 days are going to be very difficult. They're going to be very tough. But again, you do it because you know something good is about to come. It's 3 short months, folks. And then it's 3 long years of practicing magic. And it's beautiful, and it's worth those first 90 days. If the imagery exercises were complete and successful, it would be possible now to open your eyes and find yourself in a new and different environment. A careful imagery technique, therefore, belonged to the basic inventory of all ancient religions and magical systems. They found that this practice had a very desirable effect on the body and spirit. It is obvious, however, that their importance is unfortunately falling prey to the progressive trend of abstraction and oblivion. So, when you open your eyes, when you are done doing this work, when you open your eyes and you come out of the Gateway Experience tapes and you find yourself Let's see here, in basically a new environment, right? He's not talking about opening your eyes like you're in a movie and you find yourself in a far off world, in a far off land, right? That's not what he means. What he's talking about here is the effect on your body and spirit. You go into these tapes, you go into these rituals with a heavy heart, with a burdened mind. And when you come out of them, you are free from those. Your body feels lighter and stronger. Your mind is clear and ready to think and ready to forgive and move forward. Again, be careful of forgiveness. We never forgive and we never forget. I understand that part, but we also have to move forward, right? But again, we come out of these practices with a new spirit, being reborn. We've been talking about that a lot lately. That's really what it means, being reborn into a new spirit, because we've processed those emotions that were holding us down. The best for our purposes The best for our purposes as far as a good practicing environment would be a particular room set aside for that purpose only, or at least one corner of our work or sleeping room set aside for our magical conducting exercises. The area should be separated by use of blankets or rugs. On a small table or above us, a hanging style, a candle, or a lamp with colored glass. Folks, that is so awesome, right? Again, any of the images that you might see on Instagram where I'm upstairs in the Mind War Estates, in the room, basically the front room, where I actually was conducting my most extreme and intense magical exercises. The room was cordoned off with curtains. I don't really have a lot of doors in the house here. Instead, I have curtains to separate the rooms. So I would close the curtains. I would kind of be boxed into that room. That room really wasn't used for a lot besides, I would eat. The kitchen table was there. But besides that, I didn't spend much time in that room other than doing the practice of magic, maybe doing some of my artistic work. But that's really what that room was for. And again, like we've talked about before in very early episodes, I think almost all the way back to Mind War Season 1, when you first start this work, you might not have a whole room to be able to do this in. As the author says here, you might just have a little corner of your area. That's why it's going to be important to clean your bedroom. If that's the only room that you have in the house is just your bedroom, then that's all you have to work with. And you have to clean an area out and set an area aside as your altar, as your area where you're going to be doing your work. But again, from that first season, if you are doing this in a home, if you are doing this magical work in a home that is very religious and people are not going to accept what you're doing, you have to be your own secret agent. You have to kind of camouflage your work area. You have to make sure that and it's tough to say this, but you're going to have to hide this stuff from the people around you, if that's what it means in order for you to do this practice. And I'm telling you, we'll talk about this a little bit more in the next series, the series on the 12 tribes. The cult that my friend Joey, aka Dayog, is a member of. This is the cult that runs the Yellow Deli. I spent a lot of time with them. And on Saturdays, the night of the Sabbath, the heads of each of the different communities, like basically the top 3 highest people, they would shuffle all of us back into our rooms, and then they cordoned off one of the rooms with curtains, just the way that I just described. And I don't know what they did behind those curtains, but boy, I would love to know. I have a feeling those people were practicing some type of magic, some type of Judeo-Christian magic that maybe they weren't letting the rest of the members in on. Very interesting, but it literally is exactly They were doing exactly what Dr. Ernst Schertl here is talking about, separating a room with curtains and doing something. They were doing something behind those closed doors. You can now either concentrate on the flame or illumination itself to aid in concentration, or choose another object to be placed on the table so that the light falls upon it. All things that we've talked about before. You're going to be either looking at the flame, and again, you look away, and now you see the candle of the flame, the flame of the candle floating around. You can move it where you need to. The other objects that he's talking about, of course, the obsidian ball or a crystal ball, the black mirror, the obsidian mirror. You can be staring into that. You can be staring into a statue, a sigil, a demonic sigil, if you are working with a specific demon at the time, or any type of spirit. Again, if you are a Christian, you can do this same thing. You can have your little crucifix with your Savior, nailed to the cross in front of you with the blood and everything. And you can have your little wine and pretend you're drinking his blood. And you can have the bread and pretend you're eating his flesh. But at least do it. At least actually do it instead of just going through the motions. If you're going to believe in that, pseudo-cannibalistic representation, at least put real effort into it. Don't again, just go through the motions, right? But again, the flame, the candle, we've talked about before, you set it behind the black mirror. You set it just a few inches behind the black mirror, and it turns that black mirror into just the darkest portal you've ever seen. It's absolutely amazing. It says here, the rest of the room should be completely dark, with you only seeing the object or flame. Absolutely. Absolutely true. Again, we've talked about that so many times. You turn all the lights off, the only thing you're going to see is that flame. And again, in the state of somnambulance, in that state of hypnosis, with the psilocybin and the THC kicking in, the hallucinations come because there is a lack of light. It's the lack of light that helps you kind of see things that aren't there, because your eyes are constantly, in fluctuation, grasping for light, trying to see things. And that's when those hallucinations really kick in. After some time, you should begin to calm and breathe evenly and deeply as if you have gone unconscious. Then suddenly draw a deep breath and hold it as long as possible in the lungs. Again, I always talk about breathing with the music. The music will tell you when to breathe. But Dr. Ernst Schertl here is I don't think he has any music playing while he's talking about this, but it is exactly what we're doing. Those deep breaths, shallow breaths if you need, holding your inhale, holding your exhale. Do this repeatedly and violently as long as it is bearable. Again, breath work, we know a sober-minded person can do breath work right now, where you're breathing in very quickly, breathing out very quickly, holding the inhale, exhale, right? You're breathing in patterns. You do that for 2 or 3 minutes, your body is going to start to tingle. The world around you is going to start to change if you're staring with your eyes open the whole time. These are all just very simple, very universal and almost, elementary, childlike experiences, natural, elementary style experiences that we can all have with a sober mind. Just our human body, just through the act of breathing a specific way, can bring on these major physiological changes where you feel all sorts of strange things and maybe even have hallucinations. In this same way, the body becomes more and more heated. There are certain emotional sensations as well, which depend on the mood state in which we have at the start of these exercises. If successful, it is possible to leave the body consciously or to see other entities around us. He's literally talking about having out-of-body experiences, or again, hallucinations where we see spirits in front of us. You can see these things. You can see the spirits, you can see the monsters, whatever you want to call them, just like they do in the movies. You can get yourself into a state of mind, into the state of somnambulance with the psilocybin, with the breathing, where you're going to hallucinate the things that you want to see. It's deliberate hallucination. It is important to keep breathing violently as it has a direct effect on the success of depth of the trance and what is encountered during it. Again, I've used that word over and over again. Trance-like music, the hypnotic music, the state of somnambulance, all of these things are the same, one and the same. They're just different steps that you need to get into. When these sensations have sufficient depth and density, we open the eyes and concentrate our attention on the specific image, i.e. the flame of the candle, or on the image or item. Again, like we talked about before, you're doing all this stuff. You can stare at the candle. You do your breathing. You have your hypnotic music. You're doing your kundalini. And then all of a sudden you close your eyes. Now you're in the darkness. You see the negative version of your altar in front of you. You're using your magic wand to create your portals. And as you're doing it, all of a sudden, boom, you open your eyes. And the lingering images that you saw in your mind are still going to be there. So now floating in front of your altar, you're going to see the portal that you were creating. It's a tracer-like hallucination will be floating there. And again, you can call the energy or the spirits out of it. You can push your energy or push your questions into it. Our entire energy projection unloads now on the flame or image and converts it to our inner demon. It is now the embodiment of the true seat of our inner demonic forces. With this, the external transfer of the demon is now completed, and we can operate with the image as the demon itself, with the object in our belief and visualizing becoming the demon. Again, we are harnessing that emotion, the demonic emotion within us, the human characteristic that we create these images of demons to represent. We're going to commune with them. We can harness them, talk with them, communicate with them, and embody them, welcome them into us. And again, you can do this with the angelic stuff as well, if that's more of what you want to do. If you're working more with the white magic and the healing and all of that type of stuff, do it with the angelic images and whatever they represent. It's all up to you. Again, this is not mere self-deception, but is strictly an energetic, good sense reality, i.e. the image is just as the demon. Like a house is just a house. If we see it and feel it, it is the only reality, says AMO, the initials AMO. Again, if we see these hallucinations and we feel the power that comes from them, again, it's not some type of, fake, esoteric, magical feeling that's coming out of this portal. It's chemicals, real biological chemicals that you are harnessing through things like semen retention, doing kundalini, doing your breath work, the psilocybin. All of these are scientific methods to allow you to feel your emotions, allow you to feel sensations that you normally don't on a daily basis as you move through your profane life. Those things are dulled during the profane periods of your day, right? But during this work, we are harnessing them. And again, if we see it and we feel it, it is the only reality. That's the beauty. Again, as the magician, you are going to see and feel a reality that the profane do not. And we're going to, let's see, we got 2 more paragraphs here. This next one was highlighted again by Adolf Hitler. This book, Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl, was supposedly one of Adolf Hitler's favorite books. And it says this: all reality is only phantoms, but even if the reality of this demon image is a deception, to dismiss, as I said about Buddha, AMO, again, the author says, "In the beginning was the true demon, and I created it to appear to be the deception. False images are necessary for the recognition of truth." Again, these demonic images that were created, these monsters that were created in order for early man to communicate these emotional feelings, they were in a way a deceptive side of it, because they showed how scary they were. But we don't have to be afraid of them, because what we do is, again, we commune with this fear. We should fear becoming a big, fat, gluttonous, unhealthy person. We should fear the image that we see of that, and we harness it in order to motivate us to become healthy. The image, in a sense, we ourselves, a compression of the entire cosmos. In any case, he is infinitely exalted above our empirical personality, but also above all the other things in our empirical environment. Again, it's not just about imagining and visualizing ourselves in these darkest forms, in these demonic forms that are meant and created to cause fear. We also need to see ourselves in our greatest form. I've talked about that so many times, visualizing Uncle Vic, the character that I've created here that really represents the strongest side of me, this more robust side that is open and loves to communicate all the information that you're hearing here, who doesn't have fear to come out and do this type of stuff, where the normal me, the guy who just lives every day, and especially prior to me doing any of this magical work, I was way too afraid, way too shy, way too timid to do any of this type of stuff. But I visualized myself as someone stronger with the courage to come down here and do this work. And when we return in just a moment, we will continue on my magical journey over on Instagram at The Occult Technician in just a minute. All right, welcome back, folks. We're going to pick up where we left off on my magical journey over on Instagram at The Occult Technician. You're going to scroll all the way down to a post from August 22nd, 2024. And this one is titled Hypno Comedy. Now, I'm not going to play the video here on YouTube because it is, it's basically what we see here is a section from the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, where Joe Rogan is talking about how comedy is sort of a form of hypnosis, where he talks about the comedians kind of lure the audience in. He talks about literally how the comedians do the thinking for the audience. And he talks about how when he's an audience member, he just wants the comedian to do the thinking for him. And he literally talks about how it's a form of hypnosis. And I cut right from that to the video where on Red Bar Radio, Mike Red Bar is sitting there in front of his TV. He has the video that I sent him playing on the screen, where I talk about how Mike was able to break the hypnotic spell that the comedians had over me. And I started to see past their jokes and started to realize, oh, these guys are just kind of actually scumbags, and most of them are very manipulative and things like that. And it was so amazing just to hear the king of comedy, Joe Rogan, talk about how, again, comedy is a form of hypnosis. And then me telling Mike Red Bar and him watching the video on his show, it was, again, such a great honor. And me telling him, Mike, thank you for breaking the hypnotic spell that comedians had over me. I really just love this video. Go over there and watch it on Instagram. Next, we see our post from September 3rd, 2024. The first image that we see here, again, is what I like to call the Gen X Jello shots. So this is a picture of again, where I take the magic mushroom powder. So after you grow the magic mushrooms, you dry them out, you put them in the coffee grinder, and they really just become a fine powder. I take those and I put them into a candy mold. So I bought this mold off of Amazon where it's a shape of a little skull. There's about 40 of them on this little silicone mat. And you take the mushroom powder, you put it in first, your little dose. So I put about 1/8 of a teaspoon to 1/4 of a teaspoon in there. And then I take, coconut oil, right? Coconut oil that's been infused with marijuana. It's heated up into its liquid form, and then I pour that into the mold. It kind of soaks into the psilocybin, into the magic mushroom powder, and then I put it all in the freezer, and then it hardens, and basically each one of these little skulls become this perfect little dose of psilocybin and THC, exactly the amount you need in order to do your rituals, right? Again, that kind of low dose psilocybin, low dose THC. We're not taking the heroic dose where we're going to end up, as I've said so many times, where the psilocybin overtakes your mind and you're not able to focus on the gateway experience tapes, or you're not able to physically function through your ritual where you need to pull the cards and light the candles and do all those type of things. You do those heroic doses and you're often just going to end up in the corner, in the fetal position. You're going to be throwing up, whatever it is. Stay away from that stuff. Don't listen to the internet. Take what works for you, right? But again, this is a really nice picture. I really like this one. That night we pulled the card of Botis, B-O-T-I-S, the 17th demon of the Goetia. And we see that was just another typical new moon card pull. We go on to the next from September 11th, 2024. We have another amazing speech by Uncle Vic. He's out there in my backyard. I built a little deck back there. I hauled this podium outside. Holy shit, that was so much work, folks. I set up all sorts of candles, these big, they're just metal containers, right, that hold the citronella oil, and they're like citronella lamps, I guess. I wanted it to really have this kind of feeling from some of the great orators who would give these very large speeches in front of the masses, right? I was really trying to recreate that. I did the lighting in the background, and I had the sigil here behind me. Again, I had to haul all of this stuff outside by myself, very difficult. And then there I am in my backyard, in the costume, in the Uncle Vic costume, giving this wild speech in front of all the neighbors. I don't think anyone was really watching because it was in the middle of the night, but it was still interesting to do. And then, of course, I put this kind of dream-like filter over it. So again, as you're watching, you don't kind of really know, is this really happening or is this a dream that you're having? And in that speech, again, go watch it over on Instagram. I talk really about how the right and the left, these two political ideologies, are really tearing our country apart. And this was a big promotion for, again, that idea of Center X, a new political party, extreme centrism, where the extreme right nationalists and the extreme left socialists come together and form a new political party. Think about this, nationalism, where it really is about America first. We keep hearing this term, America first. It really needs to be America only, where we focus solely on American citizens, the heritage Americans, not the paperwork citizens, not the people who, maybe were born here, but their parents were illegal aliens. I mean, serious American heritage lineage, like myself. My grandmother, from my father's side, her family has been here since the 1600s, prior to the United States even becoming what we know of it as is today, right? Before there really was an America. That's a heritage American. The nationalist focuses on those people. And then everyone is so afraid of socialism, but What if the socialism was for those people specifically, instead of like we're seeing right now in the news, all of this complete billions and billions of dollars being scammed away from the American taxpayer by these illegal aliens. They're being set up by our politicians. They're being allowed to do these massive scams where they're stealing money from us. Instead, that money should be, directed towards the heritage Americans, towards the true American citizen. And guess what? Everybody's still going to make money. All of the organizations, corporations, and institutions that think they have to steal the money from us and not give it to the heritage Americans, to the true American nationalists, right? Give it to us. Let us spend the money. We're going to spend the money. It's going to funnel out to you. You're just going to have to redirect it in a different way instead of just stealing it. But I understand that's not how politics works. And that's why we need that center X, the extreme centrism, that extreme common sense. And that's what that video was about. Go ahead and watch that. Next, we have another post from September 11th, 2024. I was a busy boy there, and it's called Shame Gillis, right? This is really an interesting video from comedian Shane Gillis. So Shane Gillis was on his podcast, and he did this whole diatribe about how he was starting to go to AA. And this is literally right after he got the Bud Light sponsorship, right? So he's talking about how he's going to AA and how much better he feels when he doesn't drink for, I think he said 5 days in a row. He's like, man, I quit drinking for 5 days. I felt amazing. I just felt so much better, right? And his friends on the podcast are like, yeah, dude, you're just living with a weighted vest on. You're really just kind of destroying yourself with your alcoholism. And I'm telling you, all I did was clip that out of his podcast, and then I played it right along with the Bud Light commercial that he just created, his newest Bud Light commercial. They synced up fucking perfectly. I mean, it was like, as he was speaking on the podcast, his mouth was literally like a ventriloquist dummy talking on the commercial. It's so wild to watch. It's such a great video. Again, that one's September 11th, 2024, called Shame Gillis. Go check that out on Instagram. Next is September 18th, 2024. This was the night of an eclipse. You see there the black mirror. I set it up again with the citronella lamps there. The flames were on each side of it. And if you kind of can scroll in and look real close, you see an image of the eclipse moon there. I finished the rest of the ceremony indoors. I pulled the 5 of Cups. This card concerns itself with regret, loss, mourning, and disappointment. It features 5 skulls turned upside down. And really, when you see the cups turned upside down, they're kind of spilling out all of their abundance, right? But in reverse, it also suggests regaining inner strength and alliances. In every day. Every day you have to wake up a new day. You have to reset every day. And sometimes you have to reset multiple times a day. You have to reset your emotions. You have to forgive and forget and move forward. I know, never forgive, never forget. Understand, that's the long term. But in order to make it through and continue on with the work that you're doing, the relationship that you're having, whatever it is, you have to be able to reset and move forward and regain that inner strength. And then the final picture there is again of the altar prior. And again, this was right after September 11th. So I did a very patriotic red, white, and blue setup there. So the next is September 29th, 2024 is just a fun video that I did there, basically announcing Mind War Season 5. I kind of have some fireworks exploding behind my head. And one of the things that's interesting there, folks, is throughout a lot of the images that I do of myself, even if it's the thumbnails for these videos and stuff, I always take the opacity and lower it down to about 75%. So you can kind of see through me, because these are all ghost images. I am just a ghost, folks. I am not going to be around forever. By the time many of you see this, I will already be gone. And this is what it represents, that all of this work that you're seeing is being done by a ghost, by a man who no longer exists. On October 3rd, 2024, the night of the new moon, you see a kind of a cool picture there. My hand here, the one with the tattoo, I turned the obsidian ring around. The watch that I have on, a nice Samsung watch that is almost never charged, right? I just wear it as a black mirror on my wrist. I did charge it up. I put the sigil behind me on it. And you can see the middle finger of my left hand. I had pricked it with the medical grade lancet that I use in order to prick the finger to draw the blood. Again, when you are doing blood rituals, you are not to harm yourself. You are not to harm others. That's not what this is about. You're not doing self-harm where you're cutting yourself and scarring yourself with knives and razors and all sorts of nonsense. It's not what we do. A medical grade lancet, a small blue piece of plastic that has the tiniest freaking needle you've ever seen, and you puncture your finger. That's how you draw that one drop of blood. That's all the offering that they need. They don't need you to spill your blood or, God forbid, someone else's. You see the Mind War Studios here draped in black or in red. We go through just kind of my typical setup. We see the red triangle. We pull the card of Val, V-U-A-L, the 47th demon of the Goetia. And the 47th spirit is Yuval or Val or Vuval. He is a duke, great, mighty, and strong. He appears in the form of a mighty dromedary at first, but after a while, at the command of the exorcist, he puts on human shape and speaks the Egyptian tongue, but not perfectly. His office is to procure the love of women and to tell things past, present, and to come. He also procures friendships between friends and foes. He was of the order of potentates or powers. He governs 37 legions of spirits, just like we talked about earlier in this episode. If you are using magic to try to lure in your crush, lure them into your life and have them fall in love with you, while you are doing that, while you are imagining them in your mind, you're going to be calling upon Yuval or Vul, the 47th demon of the Goetia. Next, we have October 18th, 2024, another full moon ritual. I pulled the Knight of Swords. I really like this picture. It's very basic, very simple, and all I did was set the card on the side of my table, at the very end of my table, and you can see the Knight of Swords. He has a sword up. He's ready to slash, and he is slashing into the darkness, right? And it's that perfect description of the right side of your brain is that darkness. That's where the abyss is. The left side is where you're functioning from, right? This is how I visualized it when I was doing this work. And he's out there, he's going to slash into the darkness. He's going deep in. He's not fearful of the darkness, the abyss that lay on the other side there. I just really like that image. And then the description of the Knight of Swords, and we have just a basic setup there for the ritual that I did that night. Then we move on to October 30th, 2024. This one is titled I Voted. And this was great, man. So this is one of these, God, I don't even know what the dude's name is. Let's see if I put it anywhere here. I don't think I did. This is one of these CNN hosts, maybe MSNBC. I don't remember which one he is. He's talking about how Nazis are going to vote for Trump, and it's these scumbag Nazis, and Trump needs every Nazi vote and all this stuff. And I just put a little, emoji of myself holding a sign saying, I voted. Of course, I voted for Trump 3 times. I will vote for him for a 4th time. Really just because I kind of enjoy the chaos that he brings. I enjoy the fact that he is doing something different. Ultimately, not so different. I think when we look back at his reign, because really I think he's been president for a long time. I have a hard time believing Joe Biden was even president at all. But sadly, in a lot of ways, he is, President Trump has just shown himself to be another member of the kind of Zionist pro-Israel crowd, kind of doing whatever Israel says to do. It seems like that's what most of my life has been, that every president really takes orders from the state of Israel. Listen, folks, as far as I'm concerned, Israel can do whatever they want. I don't give a shit what they do over in the Middle East. They can have all the land that they want. They can expand Israel. They can do whatever I want. I really don't care. In fact, I think I've said it before, this idea of turning Gaza and all this stuff into the Riviera of the Middle East, great. Better than the open air concentration camp that it was, right? And they're talking about it becoming this kind of new hub in the Middle East. Those are all good things. We need progressive, positive change in the world wherever we can find it. I just hate that it's manipulated and it's and it's done by war when it was really just a real estate issue. The amount of money that was spent, the amount of American money that was spent to destroy Gaza, we could have just paid those people off, bought them new houses somewhere, whatever. I mean, it's crazy. Again, I hold no ill will to the state of Israel. Do whatever you want. You're your own state. That's fine. For me, when I'm out here talking against the Judeo-Christian Islamic paradigm, it's the fairy tale that I don't like. It's the fact that so many of my fellow American citizens believe in fairy tales. That's the hard part. That's the part that I just can't get past, that I wish that they would wake up from these fairy tales because they are so destructive. The next post is November 1st, 2024, a basic new moon post. We pulled a card of Ronav, the 27th demon of the Gwedia. Again, we just see the basic setup, another new moon post. Then November 16th, 2024, we see one of my latest art projects. This is one of the newest ones that I've done. I don't know that I've really done a lot of woodworking after this. This one I really like. It is a fully black American flag. You see that the stars are upside down instead of right side up. And this was just a piece of like countertop, right? That, a wooden countertop that you would put in your kitchen or something like that. I cut it down to shape. I taped off where the stripes would be. The stripes that would be the white stripes, I just used my little Dremel tool. I gave them some texture. And then the stripes that are fully black, I just dyed them black, right? I really like that piece of art. That's what's hanging up in the Mind War Estates living room right now. The next, you see the black triangle with the gray sigil. Again, up there, I show a picture of kind of what it's like behind the scenes. You're seeing what it's like when I'm actually doing the work. The tabletop there filled with all my notes and my red binder and everything. I pulled the card of the Fool. And the Fool says he is showing wearing a dishtar tied in a fashion traditionally referred to as a turia, but it does not halo his entire head as is proper, implying carelessness. He holds a tumbli, a one-stringed instrument commonly found in the Punjabi folk music. The Fool often implies new beginnings, spontaneity, change, and innocence. Instead of walking forward, he is alone at rest, suggesting that many of the most significant journeys we take are not physical, but mental. And folks, as of November 16th, 2024, that is exactly what was going on. I was at the threshold of some very new beginnings, of some major change, and of innocence, because I found myself, as we'll talk about in the final episode in this series, I found myself as an innocent little boy dealing with some things that I've never really dealt with before. But we'll get into that again in that final episode. November 22nd, 2024. This is a fun picture. This is basically me trying to recreate the image of like Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig at the end of Looney Tunes, and it just is me, coming through the kind of circle there, and it says it's a mind war. I'm just smiling and pointing the finger right. This image, very very simple image. It really, there isn't much to it, but again, it's one of those images that took a lot of work to create and have it be to have it made. And then the final post for today, December 2nd, 2024, just another typical new moon card pull. We pulled Forest, the 31st Demon of the Goetia. Again, just a very basic night, but again, at that time, heavy things were already starting. So we're going to leave it there for today. That's the end of my coverage of my magical journey for this episode. Another great episode today. I appreciate you being here. And as always, remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.